Hi, I'm Mark, this is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to bring you guys a review of the Aqara T1M ceiling light. Now, Aqara don't make a huge amount of smart lighting products at the moment, but one of those products that came out about a year ago now is the T1M ceiling light. And at the start of this video, I want to tell you guys that Aqara very kindly sent me this to review, along with their FP2 presence sensor, which I reviewed last week on this channel. So check out that review if you want to see it with this light working together. Now, whenever a company reaches out and says we want to send you something to review, I generally say yes if it fits with the channel, but reiterate that I will always make an honest review. Now, Aqara have sent me a few products to review now, and I've told you every time when they've done that, and I will always tell you guys exactly how it is. This, however, is not a sponsored video, and I never take sponsorship for videos because I always want to make honest reviews about stuff. So let's start off and talk about the design of this light. So this ceiling light is pretty big, but that being said, it does have this really modern look about it and is pretty much got an entirely white design. The cover is made from frosted plastic and the actual body is made of metal. All that being said, it is still relatively light. And on the inside you can see that the outside ring has got some LED lights on, and then the inside also has some LED lights. It can be fixed to your ceiling in a couple of ways, either by directly screwing it in or using the included mounting bracket. Now, this light actually includes two lights. So the outside rim is the ring light, and this has a selection of coloured lights. The inside is the second light, and this is just a selection of white lights. These do have a range of warmth and brightness options, however. In practice, this means you can control both of these sections individually, whether you're in the Aqara app or your third-party app of choice. So for me, and the thing you'll see throughout this video, is the Apple Home app. Personally, when it comes to design, I love this big modern light because it just looks really cool on the ceiling, and especially if you've got a white ceiling, it just kind of seamlessly blends in. So let's talk about specification. So firstly, this light is super bright. The main white light supports colour temperatures between 2700K and 6500K. It also works with Apple's adaptive lighting. That ring supports up to 16 million colours, and whilst it isn't as bright as that main light, it looks really cool and has some built-in colour changing effects. You can set these in the Aqara app, but because you can add them to a scene in the Aqara app, which you can then export to Apple Home, you can also include it in the Apple Home scenes. You can also build your own scenes with these lights in the Aqara app. Now, all of those lights have a 50,000 hour lifespan, which means it's going to last for a really long time. As I said, it supports adaptive lighting, which is great for changing the colour of the light and the mood of the light as the day goes on. It's also compatible with a variety of third-party services and is Matter compatible. That means you can get it into iFTTT, Apple Home, Google and Alexa. One thing to note is that you are going to need one of Aqara's hubs in order to use this light. Now, that could be one of their specific hubs, or it could be something like their G3 camera, which I've already got. In order to make sure this light doesn't waste electricity when it's not being used, it supports a low idle consumption mode. You can also tell it in the app what to do if there's a power cut. So if you're out and there's a power cut, it doesn't come back on in full brightness and leave it on using your electricity when you're away. In addition to that, it also works as a Zigbee repeater. This is great for helping your home Zigbee network if you do use other Zigbee products. The final thing worth noting is that it shouldn't be installed somewhere where there is active condensation. This means this is not suitable for your kitchen or bathroom. So let's talk about the installation. So this light has a live, neutral and a ground or earth, whatever you call it where you are. That means in the UK, installation is relatively easy depending on what it's replacing. Now, of course, whenever you install anything electrical, you want to make sure you have isolated power from the place you're installing it. You should also know what you're doing, and if you don't, contact a professional. Now, my T1M replaced my ceiling rose in my living room. And when I took off the rose of this light, it actually had quite a lot of different cables going into it. And whilst these were a mixture of live, switch or neutral and ground, I didn't want to start messing around joining cables myself, so I called up an electrician that I've used regularly. This obviously added to the cost, but actually for him installing that and my kitchen light at the same time was only £80. And personally, with things like home electrics, I think it is worth paying for things like that because you know it's done properly. And it actually only took him about 15 minutes to get it all installed. As I said, you can mount it using a mounting bracket or screw it directly into the ceiling, and he went for the latter option. Screws and raw plugs are included. Once it's installed, you set it up via the Aqara app. In here you hit the plus and you find the light. You then follow the instructions on screen, which includes binding it to an Aqara hub. And then for me, this included adding it into my Apple Home app as well. By default on the Apple Home app, it is bundled as both lights in one, and you long press to see both next to each other and adjust them individually. You can separate them if you want to via the Home app. From here, you can also set it up with any automations you want to, either in the Apple Home app or via the Aqara app. As mentioned in last week's review of the Aqara FP2 presence sensor, I've been using it alongside that to automatically turn it on when I'm in my living room. Now I've set up my automations to control it when presence is detected and when light level is below a certain level. Now because I've wanted to use it with some of my other lights in the house, I've actually done this in the Apple Home app rather than the Aqara app. Although if you do have the Aqara M3 hub, you can import all of your Hue lights into that. There will be a review for the M3 hub coming up in the future on this channel. Some of the automations you can set up in the Aqara app are actually pretty advanced, and you can set them up based on other Aqara devices. For example, if your G3 camera is set up to be alarmed when no one is at home, you can set up an automation so that when it sees an unknown face, it turns the ring red. Essentially, between the Apple Home app and the Aqara app, you can tie this into pretty much any automation you like. So let's talk about using it a bit more in depth. So for the most part, when I've not been testing it, I've pretty much just been using the ring light. That's because it creates a softer, more ambient feel for my living room. And this is especially true with the colours, and even more true with some of those circulation settings you can pick in the Aqara app. And effects like the galaxy light, where it just kind of goes through these nice blues and purples around a ring, are just really nice and create a nice ambient atmosphere for my living room. And that comes from someone who doesn't really like coloured smart lights. You can even create your own in the Aqara app and choose the direction they circulate through and which colours are used. And this means you can really personalise that ring as much as you like. And once these are saved, you can then create a scene using those in the Aqara app. And one of the best things about the Aqara app, and this goes for their infrared relays and their smart lights and all sorts, is that you can export any scene you create in the Aqara app into the Apple Home app. That means you can trigger these kind of coloured automations as part of an Apple Home automation. That's because it goes into the Apple Home app as a scene. And this is something that no smart light I've come across is capable of apart from this one. And as someone who uses the Apple Home app to control their lights because I've got different manufacturers, this makes this a really useful feature. And then there's that main light we should talk about, which has a great selection of whites and is super bright. And it's so bright, it's very likely you will never use it at 100%. But despite that, it can still get pretty dim as well, which is great. And of course it's compatible with Apple's adaptive lighting. This means you can set it to change its warmth throughout the day. And then in terms of responsiveness, it doesn't matter if you use the Aqara app or Apple's Home app or your voice with Siri, it reacts really quickly. And then there's some nice extra features, like the Zigbee repeater that Aqara have thrown in, which they didn't have to, but it's actually a really smart idea. But I guess we should ask the question, are there any downsides? And really, in using this, the only downside I can think of is that this might just be a little bit big for some houses. And if I was being really picky, then I'd probably say I'd like that ring light to be a little bit brighter at 100%, especially at colours. But both of those things are me being really picky, and it's very difficult to find a fault with this light. So all in all, what's the verdict? So at a price point of £150, but quite regularly on offer down to about £130, this light is not cheap, especially when you've got to factor in that you do need an Aqara hub as well. That being said, however, it packs in a lot of features and there is a lot to like about it. It ties nicely into Apple Home, it works with Aqara's accessories like their presence sensor, and all round it just creates some really nice scenes for your living room. If you guys have got any questions about this, do stick them below and I'll answer those for you. If you want to see my review of the FP2 presence sensor, I will link that below as well. If you do want to pick one up, I'll put a link below. At the time when this video is going live, there are some offers on Amazon, so follow that link and it will take you there. That link will go to Amazon in whichever country you're in, and it is an affiliate link. That means if you spend any money as a result of using that link, I will get a very small cut of what you spend. This channel isn't my full-time job, and so that just helps me keep making videos for you guys. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.